continue to record. Okay, we're going to be recording this meeting. So thank you, Jeremy, for being here with us today. He's going to be talking about all the tricks and tips for LinkedIn. Jeremy is an author of the Breaking to Tech website that is super, super popular, and also has a new book coming up that I'm going to actually post here in the chat if you guys haven't seen that yet. It's linked, Conquer LinkedIn, Get Your Dream Job, Own Your Future. So best timing to be here today, learning from him the best tricks. Over to you, Jeremy.
Thank you so much, Renata. And thanks to everyone for joining, whether it's your lunch hour or you're calling in from another time zone. Just know that I'm thrilled to have you here as a fellow Wolverine. And we're going to be talking all about not just LinkedIn theoretically, but specifically how to put it to work for you, whether you're looking for a job, starting a business, or trying to sort of unlock opportunity in your life. And one of the things that I want to really emphasize here as we start is that Renata has been working super hard behind the scenes to bring you this and all the programming you've been seeing this year. So please go to the Zoom chat and send Renata your favorite emoji, maybe a heart or raise the roof or whatever you want to do, because it's all volunteer and it's all for the love of the maize and blue. So thank you so much, Renata. You make all this amazing stuff possible.
Thank you.
Okay, a little bit about myself here, just set the stage for our conversation. I got to tell you, Michigan absolutely changed the course of my life. I came to Michigan as a former kindergarten teacher from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, and I walked out with access to all the opportunities I'd ever dreamed of. But the one place that really changed the course of my career, at least in terms of workplaces, was getting a chance to work inside LinkedIn. And that's because for the first time, as a previously naive job seeker who would apply for jobs online, never hear back, not really understand what's happening in the hiring black box, working at LinkedIn was like shining a flashlight into that mysterious world. And so I've been on a mission for the last half a decade to share those secrets with students and alumni at lesser schools around the world, but especially at Michigan. And so I've been helping people land great jobs across tech, finance, consulting, nonprofit, whatever they're excited about. And I want to start with 3 core principles. And the first one is that, and this is especially pertinent here in 2022, we all know that the labor market is so topsy-turvy. One month it's up, the next month it's down. It's kind of like the stock market itself. And that can feel really disempowering to job seekers because it feels like we're just one tiny boat in this massive ocean of ups and downs. Whereas if you change your view from that bird's level view all the way to zoom into a specific hire, whether it's at Google or Khan Academy or an organization even beyond that, that hiring process is going to be a linear step-by-step flow, all the way from getting the job onto LinkedIn to hiring the perfect candidate. And so if you understand how the process works, you can ultimately reverse engineer it. And the best place to do that reverse engineering, or that job hacking as I call it, is LinkedIn. And that's just for 3 simple mathematical truths. Number 1, LinkedIn has every company in the world. Number 2, LinkedIn has every recruiter in the world. And number 3, LinkedIn has every job in the world. And so if you have only a few minutes to spend on looking for jobs or thinking about opportunities, LinkedIn is where you want to spend that scarce time. But you don't want to use LinkedIn the way that people at other schools are doing it, which is thinking of it as another social network where I just go to waste time, don't want to get anything out of it. Instead, understand LinkedIn the way the recruiters do, which is that LinkedIn is a tool to help you achieve the most important goals in your life, finding work with meaning, giving you the life that you want. And so recruiters use it in a really targeted way. And I'm going to teach you about each of those steps, as well as how to hack those steps for your own benefit. But before we dive into the first step, I just want to give you a real reminder. Please do not be like me at Michigan, where I was hiding out in the back row, trying to avoid the professor's gaze. Instead, really lean in and make the most of the session. Answer the pop quizzes I throw at you right in the chat. Put your hand up in Zoom if you want to volunteer for demos, and then ask any questions you have at any point, because I'm happy to take those in real time. So with all that said, first question for you. Imagine you are now a recruiter. Again, it could be at Google. It could be for the city of San Francisco. It could be for a really cool NGO doing social impact. If you are looking for top talent on LinkedIn, what's the first thing you type into that search box? Is it I need someone with a BS or an MBA. I need someone who went to Michigan or Michigan State, or I need someone with a specific functional background, product management, product marketing. So what's your best guess? So Alfio says C, Jonathan says C, Carol says C, Shannon, Bellion, Jen, Sanket, Liang, and Sarah all agree, as do Rouge, Alex, Shira, and others. Thank you all for those quick responses. You're all absolutely correct. And to prove it to you, check this screen out. Because even if you haven't seen it before, this is the single most important screen in the entire hiring process. And the sad thing is, most job seekers don't even know it exists. But you do, because you're clued in now to the behind the scenes look at LinkedIn. And yes, this is LinkedIn, but it's not the free version that you and I are used to using it all the time. Instead, it's LinkedIn Recruiter. This costs $10,000 per year per seat. And the reason that every recruiter in the world still pays for it is it gives them access to all the talent in the world. Just really powerful. And so this is where careers rise, careers fall, candidates are found, or candidates are hidden. You definitely want to make sure you're in the former category where this one brings you to light. And if you understand how it works, you can make that happen. So check this out. Recruiters do care about schools and they do care about degrees, but the number one thing every recruiter cares about is, what can you do for me? Can you do this specific job? If not, I have no interest in you. If yes, let's talk. And the problem, of course, is that LinkedIn doesn't help your case, because when you come to LinkedIn for the first time, often as a student yourself, it's going to give you this really generic title, business student, undergrad student, whatever, at Michigan. And of course, there's no recruiter who's searching for a student. That's not a function. Instead, the savviest students and the savviest grads know that they have to go one step further and really tell recruiters and the algorithm, hey, I might be a student today, I might be a new grad today, but here's where I want to go next. This is my focus. And to help you find that really critical foundational step of clarity about where you want to go in your career, I would love to do a quick demo of a foolproof process to find your perfect path. So please do me a huge favor and raise your hand on Zoom right now, and I will guide you through this process step by step to help you learn, as well as all of your fellow Wolverines. So Alex, Andy, Angela, who's going to be the first one to raise their hand and get a chance to go one-on-one here? I'm looking at you, Carly, and Carol, and Chris. And I see that looks like we have the first person here. So just go ahead and unmute your mic and then let me know when you're on the line. Hey there.
Hi, how are you?
Doing great. What's your name?
My name is Amelia.
Amelia, great to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
When did you graduate from Michigan and what did you study?
I studied biopsychology, cognition neuroscience, and I graduated in 2017.
Whoa. Well, first of all, big congratulations. I know it's a little overdue at this point, but
Yes.
Nevertheless.
Thank you.
And tell me a little bit about where you are in your career and then what you're considering in terms of next steps.
So I recently took the buyout from Barking Mortgage. I was an underwriter, and I am looking to either be a buyer for a company or a program manager. But my main thing is a buyer because I believe I have more experience and more knowledge in that field.
Okay, and this is such a great sort of scenario to bring up, Amelia, because we've all been at these career crossroads where we have this inkling of this is going to be the right fit for me. But what most of us do, including myself, is we just dive in. Maybe we get the job, maybe we don't, and then we're miserable either way because we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into.
Right.
How would you like, Amelia, to go into the buyer world with total clarity about what it's like?
I would love that.
Yeah. So first of all, everyone, please send a lot of Go Blue love Amelia's way in the chat for being our brave volunteer here, because it takes a lot of guts. And then Amelia, let me show you what I would do if I was in your shoes.
Okay.
So I would say the beauty of having gone to Michigan is that I never have to take any of these adventures completely alone. It's never all on my shoulders. Instead, if I come over to the Michigan page on LinkedIn, I'm going to find literally 500,000 alumni who I can follow and learn from on my adventure. So the first thing you definitely want to do is you want to bookmark this page, which is actually the product I worked on when I was at LinkedIn, because it will give you all this cool connectivity. So let's follow Amelia's path here. So Amelia is looking into the buyer role, and we plug that in. And now we went from 500,000 alums down to 2,000 Wolverines specifically in that space. Amelia, is there a certain place you want to be or a certain company you want to consider?
I was thinking General Motors.
Oh, I love it. So we'll click on GM, obviously a huge employer of Michigan talent. And then if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, what you'll see is you've got all these buyers doing the exact job you want at the exact firm you're interested in, who literally have the big house field right there in their cover photo. How cool is that?
Yeah, that's really cool.
Okay, so obviously Stephanie is someone who would probably be happy to chat with you as a diehard Wolverine, and she's doing the exact thing you want to learn about at the exact company you're interested in. Walk me through the process here, Amelia. What would you do next to strike up a conversation with Stephanie?
I would try to connect with her, and because she also went to Michigan, I would, introduce first say go blue.
Yep.
And then state that, hi, Stephanie, and just tell a little bit about myself. My name is Amelia. I'm also a former Wolverine. I'm looking to one day soon to become a buyer at General Motors. If you have any time, may we please sit down and talk about what is required and what's your day-to-day like at General Motors as a buyer?
Yeah, I love that. I love to learn from your expertise. I know you must be incredibly slammed because I know this is boom times in the auto industry. But any chance you have even 10 minutes for a quick Zoom chat? How does that feel, Amelia?
That feels good.
Look at that. In just like 2 or 3 sentences, you've gone from being a total stranger to a total insider. We're part of the same tribe. I've got the same passion. You're not asking for a job, so you're not scaring her off. You're just asking to learn, which alums love, of course. And you're not asking for too much, just 10 minutes of time. So I love that approach. And now here's the big question, Amelia. I know Stephanie's going to say yes to you. So you've got your chat set up. What are you going to ask her during that chat to find out if her path is the right one for you?
First, I would ask her, what does the day-to-day look like at GM as a buyer? Because I know each company is a little different. I would ask her, what does she like about the company, to also see if is the company a good fit for me? And then I would ask her, is there any advice you can give to someone looking to also perform the same duties as her?
Yeah, oh, such great questions. And go back to that first one. What does your day-to-day look like? Why are you asking that? Couldn't you just read it on some website somewhere?
You could, but I think it's more personal to know what she likes about it, and her day-to-day might be different than someone else's day-to-day. So just to ask.
That's exactly right. And let me ask you this question, Amelia. When you think about the things that you've loved doing in your career, where you're just like losing track of time because you're so engrossed in them, versus the things that you hate doing and you always put off to the last second, what are those 2 categories of things for you?
The 2 categories of things I like?
Yeah, so the stuff you love and the stuff you hate.
Oh, I love negotiating and communicating with people from different backgrounds. That's the part I loved.
Awesome.
The part I did not love is sometimes when you have customer complaints, that's not the best. And just not feeling like you have enough time to do everything. So you always try to go above, well, just me personally, I always stay later or go above and beyond to ensure that everything got done. But that's not a part I loved.
Yeah, totally. I'm in the same boat there. So now imagine 2 different scenarios. Imagine scenario 1. Stephanie says, well, I'm spending most of my day reaching out to vendors and having really good conversations. And then I enter into the negotiation process. When she shares those sort of highlights of her day, how does that sound to you, Amelia?
Sounds good.
Right? It's like ding, ding, ding. We've got a career match, right?
Yes.
Your gifts, your superpowers are so aligned with what's going to make you successful in this role. That is totally a match. Now, imagine scenario 2. Stephanie says, I'm going to be honest with you, Amelia. What I love about being a buyer is just how hectic it is. I'm running around, I'm on the phone, I'm doing email. I just love that sense of energy and just running. How does that feel?
I'm okay with running around, but if she had stated like, it's a lot of complaints all the time, I probably would have been like, not necessarily a match for me.
Right. And I don't mean to say that it's a bad job across the board, but we're all unique, to your point. And so, if the things that are her superpower are actually your kryptonite, better for you to know that ahead of time than just diving in and being miserable, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so really what you've just demonstrated, Amelia, as simple as it may have seemed, is the big difference between people who are happy in their careers and those who are not. is people who tend to be a little bit less happy are the ones who followed someone else's path. Maybe it's what their friends were studying when they were at Michigan, or the job that their parents wanted for them, but isn't a good fit for them personally. Versus my Michigan friends who are happy a decade out of school are the ones who are playing to their unique strengths. And so by reaching out to learn from alumni on the inside, getting a really good sense of what it's like, and then connecting it back to you and what makes you special, that's how you ultimately guarantee a happy career. So thank you for doing that, Amelia.
Thank you.
All right. If there are any questions about this process, so Amelia, if you have any questions about, how would I do this in XYZ scenario, or anyone's like, how would I reach out the right way? You can absolutely come off mute and ask, or you can put the question in the chat. Either is totally fine. And I'll just wait a second. Yeah.
Well, no, I think Go Blue was a great thing. Thank you so much.
Oh, awesome. Okay, again, if there are any questions, just let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to come back with a question for you, which is, once you know where you belong, what ultimately is going to matter to LinkedIn's algorithm? So again, imagine that you are the recruiter at General Motors or the recruiter at Google. You say, I need to find a buyer. And so the algorithm has to decide, of these many sections on the LinkedIn profile, which one carries the most weight? What's going to drive your profile all the way to the top of the recruiter's list? Is it A, your work experience, B, your recommendations, or C, your headline, that little piece of text right below your name? So I see a lot of great answers coming in. Alfio starts us off with A, Sanket says C, Carol agrees with Sanket, Jen says A, as does Sarah, Alex says C, as does Amelia, Isha says A with a question mark. I totally get it, Isha. This is kind of a mysterious question, so I'm glad that you put yourself out there, but definitely totally fine not to know for sure. Zara says C, Carly says C, Cece says C, and Shira says A. So the A's and the C's are duking it out. And I'll tell you, at the end of the day, if I had to work on one piece of text on my whole profile, it would be the headline. Let me explain why. So let's dive a little deeper into this LinkedIn Recruiter product where all the magic happens. And what you will notice is that once I've started with my functional focus, I need to find a project manager, a magical pattern starts to emerge, which is over and over again, that exact same keyword, your job title, is repeated in the headline, the headline, the headline. And the reason for that is simple. LinkedIn's engineers are no fools. They know that savvy Michigan folks like us want to game the algorithm. And so we stick all these keywords into our about section and our work experience, whereas the headline is limited to just 160 characters, which is shorter than a tweet, and therefore is the clearest, most authentic signal of who you are and what you can really do, which is why it gets the most weight. So starting with that understanding, let's layer in some additional keyword insights. Let's do it in the form of a free profile makeover. So if you've ever wanted someone straight from LinkedIn to tell you how to make your profile stand out based on its unique algorithm, all you have to do is be the first person to raise your hand, and you're going to get a chance to chat directly one-on-one. And I saw that Mark was first this time. So Mark, feel free to unmute your line, and I would love to get your profile makeover set up here.
Sure.
Hey, Mark.
Hi, how are you?
Doing great. Thank you for volunteering.
Good thing.
And Mark, before we dive in, tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of your Michigan background and also your professional background.
Sure. So I graduated from LSNA a little bit before the last person. I graduated in '94.
Okay. Awesome.
Math and econ. Worked, trained as an actuary, worked in financial services my whole career, insurance companies and consulting.
Awesome. You know, as you can probably see here, Mark, there's really no such thing as a generically good LinkedIn profile. There's only a profile that's better for one search or another. What is the search that you want to be found for on LinkedIn?
Chief of staff to a CEO.
Oh, I love it. Okay, what a cool role. So if you want to be found for chief of staff, check this out. The first thing you should always do is put yourself into the shoes of recruiters. Say, what does it even feel like to search for talent on LinkedIn? And when I run that chief of staff search, because we know recruiters start with that, what do Kathleen, Catherine, and Jeffrey all have in common on their LinkedIn profiles, Mark?
Chief of staff.
And where do they have it in particular?
And the header.
The headline, exactly. And so whenever you're doubting, like, hey, how does it really work? Can I test out some of those things Jeremy was saying? Just try it out yourself. And you will see that pattern is so clear. The headline matters most. Okay, Mark, do you mind chatting me a link to your LinkedIn profile?
Sure thing.
And then I can actually pull that up and do a quick makeover to show everyone how this works.
Sure thing.
And as Mark does that, again, lots of Go Blue love, maybe a maize heart and a blue heart, or whatever you think is the appropriate emoji. Send that Mark's way, because I know it's a little risky to put yourself out there like this, but Mark is making the leaders and best proud. All right, thank you, Mark. Okay, so we're going to head over to Mark's profile. Oop, hold on one second here. And now we're going to make the magic happen. So first of all, I love the fact that your headline is already optimized. The fact that you've got chief of staff in there already means you're going to be found for chief of staff roles. Of course, for all of your classmates out there who are thinking, wait a second, Mark's already in the space that he wants to be in, but what about me? What about career changers? Any guesses how they can sort of—
Actually, I'm not.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, I have had the role, but that's part of the challenge here. I haven't had that title in a few years.
Okay. Well, the fact that you've had it at all probably separates you from some of the people on the line, because a lot of folks I know are changing careers like 180 degrees. But number one, if you've done it before, you should absolutely take credit for it in the headline for all the reasons we just talked about. The algorithm cares about it, recruiters care about it. There's no reason to hide that fact. So you're super smart, Mark. That being said, if you had never been a chief of staff, do you have any sense of how you could have sort of circled that square, so to speak?
I would do exactly what I've done, because I'm not saying here that I am one, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
people feel differently about this. Some people will say, well, I don't feel fair calling myself that if I have never done it. But there are ways around it, like saying, I'm an aspiring chief of staff, or I'm seeking chief of staff opportunities. And the beautiful thing, as Zara pointed out in the chat, is the algorithm doesn't care. It's not that smart. All it cares about is, do you have your most important keyword, which is your desired job title, in your most important section, which is your headline? And because you've already nailed that, Mark, you've already cleared the bar versus 99% of your competition. So thank you for starting there. Now, here's the big question mark. Anyone can nail the job title. That's pretty easy. But what about the skills? What about those other keywords that prove you can walk the talk? Do you have any sense, Mark, of what the most important keywords are for this particular role?
yeah, if you look at down in my description in the about, the core competencies. So it's cross-functional leadership, business strategy.
Yeah. And then how do you know these are the most important skills?
Because I've done it before.
Right. But how do you know from the recruiter's perspective?
Well,
Again,
you read, I've read job description. They're copy and paste. Every job description is the same. They use the same word.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And it's so funny, Mark, because you're right. Like everyone knows once you've done a job, these are the skills that matter. But here's the tricky thing. Remember, job descriptions are often written or heavily massaged by recruiters who often don't even know about the job because they've never done it themselves. And so if you want to speak the language of recruiters, not just the language of the industry, you got to start with the source of truth, which is the job description. So check this out. Right here on LinkedIn, you can, of course, search for jobs as well as people. And within every one of these job descriptions are the exact things that Mark was talking about. Things like KPIs, leadership meetings, blog posts, blah, 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 blah. But the trick is, if you're not like Mark and you haven't been doing this for years and years, how do you know which keywords really matter? Any guesses, Mark?
Yeah, the word clouds. You can do that, right?
Yeah. So you can definitely grab all this text and stuff it into a word cloud. Or let me show you something even better. So if you don't want to have like an eye chart that you have to scan through and say, hey, which word is a little bigger than the other one? Check out this tool. It's called Jobscan.co. And like everything I'm showing you today, it is free to use for 2 searches a month. And what Jobscan does is essentially simulates the LinkedIn algorithm, as well as, frankly, the applicant tracking system algorithm that screens your resume. And so what I'm going to do, Mark, is I'm going to grab your existing profile, which is chock full of those great keywords. I'm going to compare it side by side, get a sense of what are you nailing, and then what gaps can you fill in to get credit for everything you've done. So you're already in great shape, Mark, because you're halfway there. And I'll be honest,
halfway.
Most resumes in my experience are like at 10%. So you're already golden. But look at this. This is what Jobscan is telling us. Job description calls for fundraising, communications, VC, business metrics. you've got some of them. You definitely have communications. But Mark, have you ever done anything with metrics? Have you ever done anything in banking? Have you ever done anything on Twitter?
No.
None of those things? No, nothing with metrics?
Yeah, I mean,
This is where I want you to think really strategically.
yeah,
Not like, oh, did I use that exact word? But have I analyzed data? Have I produced reports? Have I presented dashboards?
right.
Can I
Yeah,
twist
I
your
mean,
arm on that? Will you go along with that one?
yeah, I'll go along with you.
Okay. Now we've talked a lot about the science of LinkedIn, the algorithm of LinkedIn. Now let's talk about the art side. Tell me a time when you employed something in this general vein of business metrics, Mark.
Yeah, do it.
Here, let me throw one out for you and you tell me if this sounds credible. So as someone who's a financial analyst, you could say, conduct an analysis of portfolio, producing 7 top business metrics to drive success for client and client's organization. And I know that's a little fanciful and I'm not a financial analyst myself, but could you imagine writing a bullet in that vein?
Yeah,
Absolutely. And so that's the beautiful thing. It's not about like, oh, I'm the world leading expert in business metrics. It's can you find some natural way to incorporate it either into your bullets or just flat out listed here like you did. And either way, you get credit for it.
right.
Any questions about that, Mark?
No, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. So Mark, I want to give you a special parting gift for participating in our career game show here. I know it feels a little bit like that. I'm going to give you all these keywords. And that way, even though I know you and I are both a little removed from our Michigan days, I'll give you one last little piece of homework to work on, okay? And thank you so much, Mark. You've been awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to stop here because I know there are probably a ton of questions about profiles and keywords. So if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. Otherwise, I'm happy to also chat live if you just want to unmute yourself. So let me start with some questions. And actually, Renata, let me have you sort of organize the questions based on the ones you think are most pressing. Renata, which questions that you saw come in do you think are most relevant for the whole audience?
I think there's some questions around the headline, like what if you haven't done that before, plus if you're seeking a certain position, your own people from your own company can see that, and that may not be good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked a little bit about this idea of reframing your headline, not necessarily about what you've done, but what you want to do in the future. Because people will often come to me and say, Jeremy, I can totally see how LinkedIn works. I have all these recruiters coming out of the woodwork to offer me jobs, but they're all the jobs that I had in the past, not the ones I want to do in the future. And then I look at their headline, and the headline is focused on their last job, not their next job. And so, of course, they're being typecast into that role. And if you want to break out of that mold, it's up to you to telegraph that to recruiters. That being said, to the second point, I totally get it if it might endanger your current employment to change your headline and then your boss sees it. So I'm going to show you a workaround in the next section to share that signal on the down low. So stay tuned there. What else are you seeing, Renata?
Yeah, there was some questions about headline. I think that there was one question asking, how do you attract some specific recruiters?
Yeah, absolutely.
May I contextualize that? That's my
I was
question.
going to ask you if you wouldn't mind for a second.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. This is very helpful. And I think my question is coming from a little bit of a different sector of work. I work at a university, so most of the recruiters on LinkedIn are more looking into corporate, corporate sector, firms, and universities are slowly discovering LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So how I, as a higher education professional, reach to the recruiters who are recruiting in the research and the higher ed, not necessarily faculty positions, but higher ed professional positions through LinkedIn. I don't want to get, recruiters from all over the place, just, spamming my mailbox. So how do I make it a little bit more specific that fits my interests?
Great question. So if you want to go to recruiters as opposed to having them come to you, I totally get it. And all you have to do is an advanced LinkedIn search like the following. So what I would say is, let me see all my filters, all my options. And again, this is not LinkedIn Premium. Anyone can do this for free. And you say, I want to see only people in the higher education industry. So you plug that in. And then you say, I only want to see people who are recruiters, not professors, not students, just the people who are hunting for talent. And just like that, you have all these recruiters from these organizations. So that's one place to begin. But another idea is sometimes it's not even worth your time to reach out to recruiters, because I'll be honest, recruiters are great at what they do, but they don't have a lot of skin in the game. Usually once a recruiter has put someone into the role, they move on, and they don't necessarily, they're not there to bear the consequences of a great hire or a terrible hire. Whereas the hiring manager, the actual boss, is the one who really wants to find someone perfect, because that person can make your life awesome or terrible. I've lived through both sides of that. So what I would do is I would say on LinkedIn, I'm going to employ this new hack to specifically find hiring managers. Notice that these are CEOs, founders, CMOs. These are not recruiters who are just going to move on and could care less about you. These are the people who need the best people on their team in order for their companies to survive and thrive. And if you could reach out to someone at this level and build a connection with them and say, here's what I could do for you, that's way more powerful than just having a recruiter. So those are two approaches to consider, okay? Great question. Okay, let's do this. I know there were a couple more questions coming in. In the interest of time, why don't we pause there, Renata, and I'll be taking more questions throughout, okay? All right. So, question for you all. Let's go back to that recruiter behind the scenes. And again, they could be a recruiter in higher ed, a recruiter in a tech company, a recruiter in finance. And it seems so far like they have so much power in this search process. You know, they're spending $10,000 a year on LinkedIn. They have access to all the world's talent. And yet there's one big constraint on their power, which is that even for all that money, even with all that talent, they have a measly number of in-mails a month or messages to new candidates. And the reason LinkedIn does that is they want to artificially drive up the price of these in-mails and also prevent spam from ruining the LinkedIn ecosystem. So let's say you're a recruiter who only has one in-mail left for the entire month, and you've got to decide who's going to be the lucky recipient. Well, who do you think it's going to be? Is it A, someone who's actively looking and raising their hand on LinkedIn? Is it B, someone who knows someone at your company, and so we have some connective tissue? Or is it C, someone who's following your firm on LinkedIn as a sign of their interest? So come over to the Zoom chat and give me your best guess, A, B, or C, who's going to win this LinkedIn lottery? So Bursock says C, Cece says B, Carly says C, Shannon says B, Shira says A. It really is across the board. Jen says A, Karen says B, Zara says C, and I'm happy to report that for once, everyone is correct. This is kind of a trick question, but let me explain why all three of those things really matter. So again, here's the source of truth. Here's LinkedIn Recruiter. I've put in my filters for job title, location, skills, and I still have 43,000 candidates. Again, that's the dark side of a platform with nearly 1 billion people, is you're always going to have a surplus of talent. So then, how do I decide who to reach out to? Well, of course, I want to find who's going to actually respond to my email, because I can't afford to waste one precious email on a candidate who's not going to respond. So to help me bring these to life, I would like someone to, again, raise their hand on Zoom to be my brave volunteer. And then I will walk you through how to apply these 3 filters in less than 5 minutes, so the recruiters are not only finding you, but choosing you, and you're winning those emails. Who's going to be my next volunteer this time? And Grace, Isha, Hannah, Jane, Jen, Jonathan, don't leave me hanging. All right, I think we've got Padma. Padma, I love that. Thank you so much for the nice emoji and the hand. Would love to chat with you. Hey, Padma.
Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Good. Padma, tell me about yourself, your Michigan background, your career passions.
I've been in engineering, product development, and product management. My product management experience for the last 15 years
Wow.
mainly in the product development. Completed executive MBA a couple of years ago. I now lead product management for the NetSuite platform, work at Oracle,
Very cool.
and looking at career pivots and transitions right now.
Awesome. And so if you were to identify maybe a couple of companies you're excited about or roles you're excited about, what would those be?
Could be Netflix.
Okay, yeah.
Microsoft would be my top choice.
Okay, very cool. And of course, Microsoft owns LinkedIn these days, so that would give you a good chance to dive even deeper. And Netflix certainly needs your help after all of the tough financial results recently. So here's what I would say. Imagine that I'm a recruiter at Netflix, and Netflix is telling me you got to be really picky. You have to bring in the very best talent because we can only afford to hire the very best these days. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is think about this, Padma. If I have candidates who are raising their hands and saying, hey, I am open to opportunity, versus candidates who I have no idea what their intentions are. Maybe they're not even interested in a new job. Who would you rather reach out to?
First category.
Yeah, just sort of that clear signal, that kind of signal in the midst of the noise that these are legitimate candidates. And so tell me this, Padma, have you ever gone onto LinkedIn and turned on the open to work signal?
Yes, I did.
Okay, awesome. So as you'll already recall, open to work is kind of like a bat signal to recruiters saying, hey, you're looking for top talent? Well, here I am, come and get me. And so you can imagine that Padma would put in director of product management or VP of product management, whatever Padma's looking for. Obviously, in our new age of remote work, you can do everything from on-site to fully remote, different locations around the Bay Area, even around the world, timeline kind of jobs. And then Padma, this answers the question that one of your classmates asked before, which is if you're currently employed and you don't want your boss to find out, well, instead of sharing it with everyone, maybe you share it only with recruiters. So again, the price of entry is $10,000 a year. So pretty elite territory to begin with. And then specifically only recruiters who don't work at your current company. So that way you don't have the HR department ratting you out to your current boss. How does that sound?
I did that, but that seems to be effective only for a certain time after you have done that. So does LinkedIn have algorithms? It kind of starts to downgrade you after a couple of months or something like that?
That's right, yeah. So what you'll notice is that after 90 days, LinkedIn will tell you, hey, we haven't necessarily seen you change jobs, so we're not sure that you're still looking. And we don't want a false signal going out to our recruiters because that would waste their emails. So we're going to remind you about it. Obviously, after 90 days, you can just let it turn off, or you can turn it back on and keep that signal going. It's totally your call. Great question. Okay, so that's the first thing. Padma definitely wants to make sure that they have their open to work bat signal working for them. Now, next question, Padma. If you are at Netflix and you are a recruiter, would you rather be interested in a candidate who knows someone at the company or someone who's completely disconnected?
Know someone at the company.
And why is that?
They're looking for connections to the company, perhaps internal referrals.
Yeah, because we know referrals are important, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Also, maybe they can get an introduction to you. Maybe they can do a background check on you really easily. All those things make their job easier. And so, Padma, do you happen to know a lot of people at Netflix today?
No.
Okay, I actually don't either, but watch this. If you want to quickly get credit for all the people that you do know, what I highly recommend that everyone does is they come to their My Network tab at the top of the screen. And yes, you can absolutely invite people one at a time, and that's totally fine. But if you want to be a really savvy Wolverine, and I know you all do, what I highly recommend is to come over down to this thing that says Add Personal Contacts. And instead of doing one at a time, do 100 at a time or 1,000 at a time. Because when you import your personal address books, you're not just importing the names and email addresses, you're actually helping LinkedIn identify the people that you already know. So people ask me all the time, Jeremy, should I connect with strangers on LinkedIn? And that's debatable. But the number one thing that everyone must take accountability for is, can I at least get credit for the people that I know in real life on LinkedIn? Because if LinkedIn doesn't know that I know Carly, that I know Hassan, that I know Elle, then they can't give me credit on this screen, and I end up getting filtered out. So please, please, please do yourself a huge favor and make sure that all of your address books are imported so you're getting credit for the relationships you've already built. Sounds good, Padma?
I wonder if all of my contacts would actually like to be connected on LinkedIn or not.
Yeah, this is a good question. So it is true that when it comes to social networks, we've been hearing this sort of drumbeat over the last decade, which totally makes sense. And the drumbeat says, keep your social media locked down. Keep your Facebook private, keep your Instagram limited. Do not be sharing information broadly because it can only hurt you. Well, LinkedIn is the social network that breaks the rules for social networks. Because unlike a Facebook, where the more connectivity you have, the more sort of potential problems you have, LinkedIn is all about having more connections and more upside. Think about it this way. If Carly knows someone at Netflix, she can refer me for a role there. If Hassan knows someone inside the organization, he can get me filtered in on that screen. And if I get an access to the job that I love to do, that can change the course of my life. Versus maybe the downside is you connect broadly, maybe you get some spammy messages occasionally. It's a relatively small downside for a massive upside. So my argument, Padma, is when it comes to return on investment, when it comes to ROI, it's really off the charts with having a broad, diverse network, okay? And then Padma, last question for you. If you're a recruiter at Netflix, would you rather send emails to people who are following Netflix on LinkedIn or who have never bothered to check out the company?
First category.
Right, I know these are simple questions, but again, this is how basic this is of course they want someone, because if they're gonna have to go to battle in the war for talent in the midst of this great resignation with Google and Apple and Oracle, they wanna know that they have some skin in the game, that you are actually interested in their company. And a really easy signal of that is that you bother to follow them at all. So if you haven't done this already, be sure to look up every company you're excited about and click this one little follow button. And that single click with 5 seconds of time takes you from being filtered out here to filtered in. So the reason I call these 3 high ROI hacks is the numerator is huge, tons of opportunity, tons of chances to improve your life, and the denominator is tiny. 5 seconds here, a couple minutes over here. Thank you for demonstrating that, Padma. You are awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. If anyone's got questions in terms of what we just covered or how the recruiter dispenses emails, I'd be happy to chat about those. And again, feel free to put them in the chat. Feel free to ask live. I will speak to a question from Shannon. Shannon says, can hiring managers see the open to work signal as well? Are they part of LinkedIn Recruiter? Typically not, Shannon. There are some slightly more enlightened companies that purchase LinkedIn Recruiter seats for their hiring managers because they want to get the hiring manager involved in sourcing. That being said, in my experience, because it's so expensive, because most hiring managers don't have the time to be involved in sourcing, a lot of times it really is just recruiters using LinkedIn Recruiter. Great question. Okay, last question for you all, and then I'm going to close up with some bonus goodies just for the leaders and best. So, as Wolverines, we are naturally curious. That's what brought us to Ann Arbor. That's what brought us into this conversation today. But as much as we love to understand how processes work, at the end of the day, we're all hungry for results. So if you're going to apply for a job today, which one of these channels gives you a 10x advantage over all the others? Is it applying through a company's website, applying through a job board like LinkedIn, or applying through a referral, someone on the inside going to bat for you? I think you all probably have heard this a million times, as Alfio has, and Bellion has, and Carly has, but indeed, the answer is C. And to prove it to you, check out the data. This is a infographic covering about 5 million job applications over several years across many different industries. And what you can see on the right-hand side, and this is not a surprise, is that the vast majority of applicants are coming from the usual suspects: career sites, job boards, all the stuff we're used to. But the problem is when you slide over to who actually gets hired, there are many fewer people on that side of the ledger, which is telling you this is a very tough game to play. It may seem easy because it's so easy to say, one click apply, but the odds are not in your favor. It's kind of like playing blackjack in Las Vegas. On the other hand, there's this tiny minority of people who are being referred in, less than 1 in 10 applicants, and yet they are making up the vast plurality of all the hires. And so when you think about odds, this game is actually in your favor. This is the one you want to be playing. And of course, the question is, how do you play this game? How do you win at getting referrals? So to walk you through that process, I need one final volunteer to raise their hand and help me close out the session in style. So who's it going to be? Is it going to be Andy, Angela, Cece, Dave, Ed, Gong, Grace, don't leave me hanging here. Throw me a little Amazing Blue lifeline, because I would love to do a really exciting demo to show you how easy it is to get referrals, especially in the Michigan network. Oh, I see that Carol has raised her hand. Carol, you are amazing. Carol, I'm going to ask you to unmute if you don't mind. Oh, there you are. And
Hi.
Carol, thank you so much.
Of course, happy to help. Thank you for
Yeah.
helping us. Yes.
Oh, of course, of course. You bailed me out there. I was worried I was going to have to cold call people like back in business school. So Carol, tell me a bit about yourself.
I'm a postdoc, so currently in Michigan in the School of Information.
Cool, I love it.
My PhD though is in social work.
Ooh.
And so now that I'm here, I've been open to a whole new world, and I would like to join the world of UX research.
Yeah. Oh, what a sexy field. We're actually hiring for that right now at Khan Academy. So you and I should talk after this.
Oh, I would love that. Yes.
See, that's the power of the network right there. But if you're trying to basically generate referrals on demand as opposed to just pure coincidence, let me give you a really systematic process.
Awesome.
So Carol, throw down the gauntlet for me. If you could work for any company anywhere in the world or any nonprofit, what would it be? And don't pick
Google.
one that's super easy to break into. Give me a tough one.
Google.
Google, yeah, for sure, the big G. And I have a feeling there are probably some Googlers on the line given our Bay Area focus today. So you may be able to network immediately. But check this out. A lot of folks don't know this, but if you search for a company on LinkedIn, yeah, you can click the follow button, or you can do something even better, which is on the company's own page. You can click this little link to the number of employees. And in doing so, you now have access to a company directory that is more powerful and more nuanced than even the one that Google maintains on its internal servers. And I know that because I used to work at Google. Google doesn't know nearly as much about Alice, Mark, and Sarah as LinkedIn does. And all that information is a potential referral followed by a potential referral followed by a potential referral. So with 300,000 potential referrers at Google, who's going to be your lowest hanging fruit? Who are you going to go to first, Carol?
Someone who hopefully maybe was at Michigan.
Yeah, for sure. Or better yet, someone you know directly, right?
Oh, okay.
And again, this is the advantage of uploading your address books, is you might be surprised to discover that someone you worked with 3 jobs ago or someone you went to undergrad with is actually at Google today. And that's why it's so important to stay in touch, especially on LinkedIn. And so if Joan refers you or Abhishek refers you or Balaji refers you, yes, they're going to get a pat on the back and they're going to get good karma. What else are they going to get, Carol?
Someone they know and can trust to do their job well.
That's right. I like all these heartwarming things. That certainly is part of the Michigan ethos. But check out what Shannon and Jen are saying in the chat, which is, let's think about this the way kind of an accountant might think about it. They're going to get paid. And the reason for that is that Google, like every company in the world, has crunched the data, and they know that referred candidates are more likely to say yes to the job offer, more likely to stay longer on the job, more likely to actually outperform other employees. And so it's just worth their while to pay for referrals. And how much do you think they're going to get paid, Carol? Any guesses?
I have no idea. No.
So believe it or not, and this is true from having worked there, in my experience, Google pays up to $25,000 depending on how exotic and rare the talent is.
Wow.
And there are people who are making more money at Google just from referrals than they were from their salary, which is saying something.
Wow,
So,
cool.
whenever you have any doubt about, should I ask? I don't want to bother them. Just know it is absolutely a win-win. Yes, you get an advantage, but so do they. So that's the first step. Now, if you don't know anyone there directly, Carol, what's the next best thing?
I would, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
No worries. So you could definitely go to Michigan Alumni, and that's a certainly powerful thing. You're going to be shocked by just how many Michigan folks and Ross folks and all these great Michigan programs are over at Google. Almost 100 just from those 2 schools alone. So definitely no shortage of folks like that. That being said, what is even more powerful in some way is the idea of a second degree connection. Any ideas what that is, Carol? As someone in this
I know someone
world
who
of
knows
network
someone.
theory. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
A friend of a friend,
Yeah.
right? So now check out the exponential math. I only knew 400 people directly, but through friends of friends, I know 16,000. which is practically like 5% of the entire Google workforce. So if I want to get in touch with Sarah or Robert or Nir, what do you recommend, Sarah? Or what do you recommend, Carol? Do I reach out directly or is there a better way?
I would reach out to the friend that I know who knows them.
Yeah, so I went to school at Michigan with Noy.
Mhm.
Noy can introduce me to Sarah. And now what are the chances that Sarah responds if one of her good buddies does the introduction?
Pretty high.
Yeah, pretty much a slam dunk.
Mhm.
So another way in. And then finally, is there anything else, Carol, that you might have in common with Googlers? Anything else that might bind you to someone on the inside?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Well, check this out. So let's say that prior to coming to SI, you used to work at IBM. Bam, it turns out that there are 5,000 ex-IBMers who you might have that in common with. Or maybe you say, one of my big passions is volunteering to build homes for Habitat for Humanity on the weekend. And it turns out there are almost 100 Habitat volunteers on the inside at Google. And so the bottom line is there are so many different ways in. And so here's my final question for you, Carol. Once you understand the ramifications of this data, at what point, Carol, should you give up and looking for a referral?
You don't give up until you get a job.
Exactly. That's right. The deadline is the day you start the Googleplex. That's when you stop. And even then you keep networking.
Mhm.
So Carol, I got to thank you so much because,
Thank you.
you know, even in a postdoc stage, it never hurts to keep your eyes open for possibility. And you have just shown everybody out there exactly how to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Okay, we're coming to the end here, and I want to make sure to answer any questions that are on your mind. So if you've got any questions whatsoever about, Jeremy, should I buy LinkedIn Premium? Or Jeremy, what should I do with endorsements? Or what should I post on LinkedIn? Now is the time to ask right there in the chat. And as you do that, I'm going to give you a quick reminder of what we've covered, as well as some bonus goodies just for being from the best school in the world. I might be a little biased, but you know. So here's the hiring process for you. You know, every recruiter in the world goes through these 4 steps, which is I need focus candidates who have the right keywords, who are showing me that they're email worthy, and then ideally have a referral. And that means your homework is really simple. Get that clear North Star. Talk to Michigan alums, find the right path for you. Don't keep it locked away in your brain. Turn it into keywords that you put on your profile, make yourself discoverable, and then make yourself choosable as well, because it's easy to say yes to someone who's raising their hand, who's in the game, who knows someone at the company. And then finally, seal the deal. Get that good housekeeping seal of approval that is someone on the inside going to bat for you. They win, you win, everybody wins. And speaking of winning, check this out. If you want to connect with me, I would love to connect with Michigan folks. Doesn't matter if you're a student, a grad, doesn't matter which program you went to, just send me a message on LinkedIn. I would love to stay in touch tomorrow and a year from now. Number 2, the LinkedIn Masterclass, which is this course that I put together actually for Michigan Ross, is $100 for students at other schools and alumni at other schools, but it's free just for Michigan alums using the link I shared in the chat. And by the way, it's not just free for a day or a week or a month, it's free for a lifetime. So as LinkedIn evolves, the course will evolve with it, and you'll always have the latest and greatest. And then finally, if you want a free profile review from yours truly, someone who actually worked on the inside of LinkedIn, exactly like Renata said, we have a brand new book out that we would love you to check out. And if you're willing to check it out, leave a review online, we'd be happy to give you a free profile review straight from the source. So check it out. We'd love your feedback. Okay, so those are the bonus goodies. Now let's talk your questions. Renata, what did you see in terms of sort of the biggest, most pressing questions over in the chat?
There's one that I think Shira brought up twice, that she's asking about the titles that she should have on LinkedIn, that sometimes she has a job title that is not equivalent to the work that she's doing.
Yeah, oh, such a good question, Shira. And this speaks to the fact, and this is a really important philosophical point, that your career story, your narrative is yours to tell and yours to tell alone. And so a lot of times you get hung up of like, oh, I've got to use the title that the company gave me because that's just the card that I was dealt. No way. If I'm a recruiter from the tech world and I have no idea what you're talking about when you describe your nonprofit role, that's doing you a disservice and it's doing me a disservice because now we can't find each other. So what I would do is I would take your job title. For example, Shira said I was a lead facilitator, which probably no one is searching for. And I would say lead facilitator / senior communications and research analyst. And as long as you actually did the work that aligns with that job title, at least the way it resides in the recruiter's mind, it is totally legitimate to list both titles. One is your formal title, the other is your informal title, the one that actually describes what you did and which makes you more understandable to recruiters, which is doing them a favor. So take control of your career story, tell it the way you need to. Great question, Shira. What else, Renata?
Someone asking if LinkedIn Premium is worth it.
Yeah, oh, good question. So let's see here. Alfio, if you don't mind unmuting for a second, give me your best guess. Like, why do you think LinkedIn Premium might be worth $100 a month? Hey, Alfio. Okay, looks like maybe Alfio's audio is not working. That's totally fine. So a lot of people tell me, Jeremy, I think I need to have LinkedIn Premium so I can send emails to alumni, just like you were talking about. Well, check this out. If you come over to a separate site called hunter.io and you look up any company in the world, for example, linkedin.com, which is the email address format over there, it will do the heavy lifting for you and figure out the most common email pattern is first initial, full last name at linkedin.com, which is true, by the way. I was Jay Schiefling. And that way you can reach out to anyone on the inside without paying a cent for LinkedIn Premium, without buying emails. So just a nice way to get around that. Please do not waste your money on LinkedIn Premium when you could be donating to Michigan. You could be taking Michigan alumni out for coffee. Those are way more worthwhile investments. Back to you, Renata.
There's another question, like if you're interested in multiple jobs, what should you put in your headline?
What kind of jobs was that?
That was Amelia. If someone is interested in 2 different jobs, you suggest putting both jobs in the header.
Yeah, great question, Amelia. So classic question is, hey, I know what I want to do, but there are 2 things I want to do. How do I kind of square that? Well, what I would highly recommend is try to make sure that you've at least done your homework and you've chosen 2 jobs that really family or cluster together. In other words, if you list that I want to do sales and business development, I totally buy that as a recruiter. The things that are going to make you successful in one are going to make you successful in the other. Persuasion, influence, relationship building. However, if you tell me that you want to do sales and computer programming, now my little red flags start to go off because I'm like, you can't possibly be best in the world at both of those things. They're just too different. So as long as they go together, you're golden. If they're all over the place and you have 7 different roles, you got to get more focused. Good question. Maybe time for 1 or 2 more, Renata.
There's another one. How much weight do skills and endorsement carry in a recruiter search?
Yeah, so check this out. So if we come back to the LinkedIn recruiter screen, the source of truth, you will notice that skills themselves are really critical. Recruiters can filter for, I need someone with A/B testing or SQL or Python. And either you have it or you don't. So you got to get them listed. However, you'll also notice that there's nowhere on this whole page that endorsements are filterable. And the reason for that is that endorsements have actually been ruined during my time at LinkedIn because they got overused. As an example, my own mother was endorsing me for everything from astronomy to zoology, 2 things I knew nothing about. And so all that noise over time has crowded out the signal. And so recruiters can't trust them, and therefore they're not part of the LinkedIn recruiter experience. So absolutely get recommendations, get real testimonials from real people who are speaking to your value, but those little check boxes, forget it, doesn't matter. Okay, last question, Renata, what do you think?
There's some question here. Mark just sent how I show side gig work with startups. So currently CFO of 2 startups in addition to the day job as a consultant.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, one of the nice things, and we haven't talked about this very much, but it's really powerful, is on LinkedIn, you can basically do whatever you want wherever it sits in the economy. So yes, there's a lot of stuff on LinkedIn about looking for jobs and putting yourself out there for employment. But if you also want to hang out your own digital shingle and get hired for freelance or contract work or even full-time business stuff, you can absolutely do that. And the place you want to do it is in this little work tab where you can say, hey, I've got my services that I want to list, services marketplace. So you might say, I'm going to list that I am hanging out my digital shingle for email marketing or accounting or finance or whatever my specialty is. I can explain my background in that space. I can even let people submit basically RFPs to me, and I can respond to those. And so that way you have it both ways. At the same time as you're a professional, you can also run your side business or your side hustle and get work right through LinkedIn. So a lot of different tools, all for free, to bring business to you, whether it's full-time work, contract work, or whatever you're excited about. Okay, I just want everyone to give one last shout out to Renata, because Renata, you brought this all together. You made this happen.
Thanks for such an amazing training. I just learned a lot. So I'll be this weekend revamping my LinkedIn.
Oh, that's awesome. And everyone out there, just know, there are obviously a few storm clouds on the tech economy horizon right now, but in general, there's never been a better time to look for jobs, look for opportunity. So if you're hungry and you want something new or different, now is the moment. You've got the right tools, the right network, the right people like Renata rooting for you every step of the way. So I wish you tremendous success. And no matter where you go next, go blue. Good luck, everyone.
Oh, thank you. Good luck, everyone. Thank you, Jeremy. That was amazing. Thank you.
Have a great weekend, all.